Hello and welcome back to the Farcast. Today we're talking about something a little different. It's still an element of the BattleTech universe, but instead we're going to be talking about a console exclusive. I know. With me today I have two people, a founder who is
Yep.
new to the podcast, and a regular Pajamaboy. And we're going to be talking about Mechassault. So, Mechassault was a 2002 action shooter featuring vehicles and themes from the Battletech universe. It was developed by Day One Studios, now known as Wargaming Chicago Baltimore, as an Xbox exclusive, and was one of the first games for the console to support online multiplayer. The game performed well enough to receive two sequels, an additional Xbox exclusive, and a third for the Nintendo DS, developed by Backbone Entertainment. While Battletech had several video games already in existence by the time of this game's release, Mechassault itself stood out due to the unique rise or use of more fast paced arcade style action as compared to the more simulator like gameplay of the popular MechWarrior computer games. While I can't speak for everyone, I can attest that Mechassault, and more specifically its sequel, Mechassault 2, was a cornerstone of my later childhood and was pretty much the only game my friends would play during our occasional get-togethers. Um, you two are kind of working on your own fan projects for Mechassault. What's your experience with it, and what are you working on?
Who's gonna start? Me or
Founder, you're new here. You start.
Yeah, we'll put you on the spotlight first.
all right? So you're talking about my experience with Mechassault, or
Sure, whichever you think is more pertinent.
right now it's let's talk about Mechassault. Mechassault was something I was introduced to as my first game ever, like ever, and this was quite a while after Mechassault 2 had come out. As I haven't seen or touched a video game. It must have been 2008 when I got my hands on Mechassault 2, which is far past when it came out, right?
Yeah, I think that was about right. How old were you when this happened?
I was 8 years old.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was two when I first played MechWarrior 2, and that was my first game ever.
I still play Mechassault. I've been playing it ever since. It's a game I obsess over. I've every little mechanic, every little detail. I'm going just going like, wow, someone painted this with their bare hands, or someone touched that, and it's here. It's to that level of obsession, and uh, I don't think many people have seen it, but I've it's kind of driven me to make uh fan animations and custom models that mimic the mech models face for face, vertices for vertices. The textures aren't accurate because I didn't have access to any of the sources I do now. But yeah.
Yeah, for those watching the video instead of just listening, those screenshots of MechAssault I have on the screen, those aren't screenshots. That's his work. It's that good. It's very accurate and it's near indistinguishable. The only reason I could identify this particular Prometheus was the fact that the muzzle flash on the Owens wasn't it was too good. Whereas in the actual Mech Assault, it's very crisp and kind of jagged. But in his, it's much cleaner and better looking.
Huh.
Yeah, it's very impressive work, and I'm shocked. Like, walk me through your process. How do you recreate these models now in a way that looks so much like the actual game?
Well, it started off with just opening up the game and having a monitor right next to my normal monitor. So I have a TV right here with Mechassault plugged in, Xbox plugged in, and it's got its own cord running somewhere else because I don't have enough plugs in my room. So I just open up the game, clear out an area, and then if there's if there's no NPCs around and I don't have to complete an objective, I can just hop out of the mech and look at it. I can open up Blender and then start building from scratch, comparing what shapes are where and how to recreate that part. And I try to count each face on each little corner rather than just going like, okay, there's a curve there, and then making whatever I want. I have to be as accurate as I can. And then when it comes to making a mech that you can't get your hands on or don't have a high quality version of, I've found ways to break through trigger spots and areas that would normally cause an enemy to come after you. So I can just fly over or glitch through walls to get to an enemy and look them right in the face, and then go, okay, there's a texture there, there's a square there, there's a triangle there, blah blah blah, and I can just recreate the mech right then and there.
That sounds like it would take an incredible amount of patience and perseverance.
That's kind of what happens when I'm like really determined to get what I want.
Well, it certainly seems to have paid off. You certainly have quite a bit of skill in that regard, just in your pure ability to recreate the models. But, even as their own things, they're pretty darn good in their own right. So I think you have a lot of potential, not just in recreating assets from your favorite game, but, going forward into the industry.
I thought about that too. It's rather than just trying to work my way into like just making what I want, so maybe I could use the skills I've learned along the way to actually make something that could be sold as a separate product or be used from by someone.
Yeah, I imagine okay, let's deviate a little bit from Mechassault. If you had to make your own game and it wasn't Mechassault related, what would you make?
Um, I've hinted this before and you wouldn't know it, but it's Fractured Universe. I got a script, a very bare bones script for it right now. And
Ah,
it's I have to look for it real quick. Give me a moment. Uh, Fractured Universe. All right. This one is it's just basically a base layer. It doesn't say much about like it doesn't say anything for quotes or lines or what events really happen, but it's like a fleet of survivors leaves their dying planet while those who chose to stay behind went on an expedition to search for a final hope, which means people went into space to go find a new home, but people on the planet stayed there going to like an Arctic pole or something, thinking that there's like some sort of safety there. Like it deployed as many vehicles and aircraft as they could to try to find a last hope. Um, the expedition succeeds and they become spacefaring later than the survivors. So so that means the people who stayed behind, they're assumed to be dead, but that's not touched at all during the beginning of this game, and then you know they come back later as an enemy,
ah,
and
so
then
it's sort
so
of an anti the clans from BattleTech, where instead of a splinter faction of humanity going out to come back as invaders, they were left behind and became their
yeah,
own thing.
their reasons for becoming enemies due to the passage of time. It's like many generations, a joke or rumor was turned into a legend that ultimately believed by the coming generations. It's like those that set up to the stars would come back, destroy the world that they were kind of saving. They thought was kind of saving. Things like
Oh,
that.
that sounds like a lot of fun. If you
But
ever make that game, please send me a free copy and I shall play it and, you know, enjoy it because it sounds like a fun time and I like free stuff.
That kind of reminds me of Interstellar. Have you seen Interstellar?
I have not. But there's more to this. There's more to this. Uh,
Interstellar is like really good. You should watch it.
right. So there's more to this script. As for the survivors, the ones who left in the first place, took all the ships and whatnot, they spent countless centuries in space. Each generation's beliefs becoming more exaggerated or twisted version of the last. This just creates clear divides in beliefs. Some extremists and some who believe the next planet is their right and home. The issue is that each generation has spent their beginnings and ends surrounded by the lifeless steel of their starships. The idea of walking on a planet's surface isn't even fathomable. This creates another issue. When they come across the habitable planet, some rush to head to the planet's surface, but a few ships are destroyed by the old guard that believes the planet violates the way of life that has been followed since forever. A ton of ships don't want to land, but see nowhere else to go due to the old guard destroying ships left and right. The ships land can't trust each other because they're varying beliefs and they don't know who holds what beliefs and who doesn't. If the crew of one ship discovers another landed ship, they head back to fortify their ship/camp due to fear of attack. Several landed ships and crews do attack each other for supplies to best survive in the alien world. But then there's the crazy part where I was like, all right, how else can I make this all screwy? It's like as night falls, the old guard fires on the lights they see from orbit. because they're afraid of landing, they attack from orbit like cowards. Fighting continues for years and years to the point where the landed ships have become cities and have cities built around them. The crews have survived and adapted to further grow these. Um, the ships at the center of the cities are almost sacred and enter. They're almost sacred to enter, and the people who enter are amazed by them. These cities are hidden underground, escaping the sight of the old guard. So basically, like only during the nighttime can the old guard see them because they don't have scanning tech. They just have to look at the glints and whatnot. And then so when these cities are at war trying to get more territory, if night starts to fall, it doesn't matter how much ground you've gained. You have to run back to the city you came from before all hell comes raining down on you.
Oh, it sounds very interesting. You've really thought about this.
There's all sorts of this goes on for paragraphs and paragraphs, but I'm not going to talk about any of that. It involves like religion that's built by like their scenarios and what they believe to be true.
Oh, it sounds like we'll have to go into this quite a bit more on a future date because I'm sure you have a lot to talk about here.
I do. Yeah, I mean, I've already got the ship, one of the ships, the old guard ships done. The the God Strike, as it's called, or G Strike. Probably send you an image of it.
Sure, I'll throw it up on screen for people who are watching.
Uh, so while I try to get that, we can talk about something else.
All right. So founder, you've introduced yourself. Now, Pajama, why don't you tell us about your particular project?
Yeah, so I'm Pajamaboy. I'm the project lead of Wolves at New Day Fiction. Um, Wolves is a absolutely free fan made Mechassault game. Wow, fits right in with the subject matter. It's like we didn't plan this. Uh, um, so yeah, I handle 3D art, animation, texture, environment, pretty much any everything you see on screen is stuff that I've done. Um, that's kind of all there is to it. We made a lot of modernizations, a lot of changes. We really wanted to evolve the formula. It's not so much a remake of the original game as it is like what would a Mechassault 3 look like in my eyes. And this was before the Mechassault 3 leaks surfaced. So like it's very much the gameplay of Mechassault 1 with some of the visuals and soundtrack and artistic direction of Mechassault 2 with some other um, new features sprinkled in that I won't get into right now. And yeah, we've been making really good progress. I'm really excited about Wave 2, which is the next big content release we have coming out.
Ooh. So can you tell us anything about Wave 2 yet, or is it still under wraps?
Well, the Wave 2, there are still 2 mechs left to do, one of which we can't talk about. It's an assault mech that I'm not allowed to talk about right now. But we've got the Raven, the Raptor, which is the Raptor 2, but Mechassault kind of does away with the um what's the term I'm looking for? It does away with the distinguishing between the Raptor and the Raptor 2 for the sake of like arcadey
Ah,
simplistic, like
yeah.
the simplistic nature of the game. Yeah. So it's technically the Raptor 2. So we got the Raven, the Raptor 2, the Hellbringer, and then of course our assault mech, which is coming out. And we don't really have a release window right now. We're a little bit behind schedule with some of the assets and stuff, but it's still shaping up to be a good patch. We've done a lot of little polishing. We've upgraded the lighting engine slightly. Um, and yeah, it's all in all, it's really exciting. I'm super excited to get this in the hands of the players. I know they've been waiting a really long time.
That sounds awesome. I don't know why, but I perked up so much at hearing the Raven was in it. I just think the Raven's so freaking cute and awesome, and I took freaking forever to do a mech lab on it, even though it's one of the best mechs ever.
I watched the Mech Lab. Might have been yesterday or the day before. Good Mech Lab. It's a good one.
Oh,
Still waiting
thank
on the
you.
help one
I know. I'm taking
though.
forever with the Hellbringer. I like literally
I'm
procrastinated.
never gonna shut up about it. Just so you
I
know,
know.
there's the Raven if you want to put it up on screen. This is the high poly model. It's still work in progress. There's still work to do. But this is what the high poly looks like right now. And of
Ooh.
course, we're still working on it. But a lot of that high poly was actually inspired, and I remember seeing the design for the new Clan Invasion set. Like they're redoing a lot of the designs, really mixing in the new with the old.
Yeah.
I thought the Clan Invasion set really nailed it with the art, and so I started using a lot of that for reference. I believe it's who's the artist? I Is it Bishop Steiner? Is that what he goes by on Twitter? He always
Um.
posts the art. I don't know if he does the art, but he always posts the art.
Oh, is that Bishop Steiner that did that?
I think it might have been. Let me. I have the original piece right here. I am a huge fan of this Raven design, and this is kind of my job, is like looking at this stuff and kind of just like pulling reference and deciding what to keep, deciding what to throw away, deciding what fits into Mechassault. So there's the original design. It's in the podcasters only channel, and yeah, I mean I love how much it actually looks like the Mechassault Raven. I'm a huge fan. So the Raven got a lot of my attention personally because it was one of the first mechs we got back in the early prototype days when we didn't even know how to make torso twisting work.
Nice, nice.
So
Yeah.
the history there.
I love Bishop Steiner's work. I actually worked with him for a little bit. Shoot, it might have been a decade ago, for all I can remember, on some videos. So yeah, I gotta bug him and see if I can get him back on here so we can talk about his stuff.
That would be a guest worth having because
Oh, absolutely.
he's incredibly skilled. Like his line work looks indistinguishable from the original TRO stuff.
Yeah, so Bishop, if you're listening, please, hit me up and I'll, put you in front of the classroom and you can talk about your stuff and I can sit here looking like I did something important.
The trick to not turning red in the face is to imagine us all in our underwear.
Well, you guys wear underwear?
Yeah, you guys wear underwear.
I mean, not at the moment because I'm in pajamas, but yeah, most
Oh.
of the time.
Oh, I only have a bra on right now.
Real dude, I took my bra off. Gotta let the girls breathe.
Oh, oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, even we've even been looking ahead of Wave 2 and into Wave 3 a little bit. We've got one of the first concept. I have a friend of mine working on one of the first concept pieces. One of the first 2D concept pieces that Wolves will have ever produced is being worked on for Wave 3, and I'm really excited about it. So
Ooh.
yeah, it's gonna be cool. Definitely looking ahead and planning. And I said in the other podcast, planning on doing stuff that will make BattleTech, like hardcore BattleTech people, go, "Whoa, okay, dude, you might be taking it a little too far." I really want to use Wolves as an opportunity to push the envelope for sure what people will tolerate. That's what I'm
Yeah.
interested in.
And by that you mean like game mechanics specifically?
Oh, for sure. Game mechanics, um, visual presentation, scale, stuff like that. Really just kind of showing the community something they haven't seen before in a game that was not universally disliked, but in a game that was kind of like a majority of really hardcore lore people were like, "Ugh," I don't like. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how you describe it. You have to describe the emotion in a sound.
Grognard, I guess, is sort of
Yeah,
what
yes.
they are.
Um,
But I mean, those
so yeah,
people, if they play any of the games, all the games are apocryphal. Like the MechWarrior series has shield generators in at least 3 games and weapons that don't exist, and the scale isn't canonical because the scale for tabletop BattleTech is freaking awful, if we're honest. And yeah,
yeah, a lot of what we do is putting fun first and lore
yes,
second.
rule of
We
cool.
definitely want to have fun. Yes, exactly. The rule of cool. Even the backstory, which I mean, Wolves is not a story based game. This might sound familiar to fans of MechWarrior 5, but we're not trying to tell a story with this game. Maybe we will one day when we have like a bunch of time on our hands. But like, I don't even dare dream it's possible. The scope is kept pretty low deliberately in order to make sure that we have goals that are achievable. But like even the story, like the story is predicated on what Mechassault 2 set up. So like for I can't go too deep into it, but the premise that we've given the community right now is the Wolf Dragoons defeat the Word of Blake on Terra, and the there is a conflict for the salvage at the bottom of Alera's crash site on Terra. And people, it's a very small scale. It's not like one of those big universal conflicts you're used to seeing in the BattleTech universe. It's a small scale conflict between a few factions, people battling for salvage. And there's an opportunity, if we choose to take it, there's an opportunity to tell some really human stories there, and that's what I'm interested in telling. Human stories. No, I don't want to be jumping from planet to planet, like focusing on one or two locations, focusing on characters and not the mechs as much. And that's kind of like, if I were to make a campaign, that's kind of where we would go with it. But yeah, that's even lore wise, like we're putting fun first, and we're making sure that we're not focusing on the inner sphere as much as we're just focusing on like this small cast of characters.
And what can you say to potential players who want to play this game that hate fun? Are they going to find a way to enjoy this experience, or are they just going to be left out in the cold?
If you didn't like Mechassault, I don't think this is the game for you. Is what I'll say. The thing is, I'm not trying to target Mech Warrior people. If they didn't like Mechassault, like, hey, you know what, man? I respect that. Totally fine. But this is the game. This is the game I want to make, and I will not compromise my vision for what Mechassault is to cater to the more simulator friendly people, which sounds harsh, but I really want to make sure it's consistent with what people expect. I don't want to make like a Mech Warrior game.
Yeah.
Like there are other Mech Warrior games that are going to do the job better than I ever could.
Yeah, it's always weird to me hearing people criticize Mechassault for not being like a simulator. Like you're barking up the wrong tree. It's a different genre.
It's in the name. Who was it that said did you ever watch The Examined Life of Gaming? I brought him up a few times on a couple different podcasts. He made a retrospective for Mechassault, and he said, and I love this quote, and keep in mind that I'm paraphrasing, that the focus on arcade gameplay is in the name Mech Assault. It's not Mech Warrior. Like there was never if it was like a numbered Mech Warrior entry and they changed the gameplay to that, I could understand the rage. But this was like Microsoft was getting a new console out. They took a small team from FOSSA, formed day one, and they said make us a console exclusive. That's all. That's all it is. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and I sort of think like this isn't the best analogy, but like someone playing XCOM and saying it's a bad FPS game. Like, no shit? It's not what it's going for at all?
Like, yeah. That's like saying I mean, people could say that about Harebrained Schemes BattleTech. Like, well, this isn't a sim game. Yeah, no shit. I would certainly hope it's not a sim game.
Yeah. Sorry, my cat keeps playing with the microphone. Please don't do that, kitty.
I haven't noticed any distortion or anything in your mic, so you're good.
I can just see the audio levels on my recording software going up whenever she bats it around.
So yeah, no, like, well, to get back to the original question, Wolves is definitely not going to be for the hardcore lore people, for the people who love sim. There is an experience for you if you enjoy sim, and it's going to be Mech Warrior Living Legends, Mech Warrior Online, or Mech Warrior 5, or even the older entries like Mech Warrior 2. I know you're a big fan of Mech Warrior 2. It's like,
yeah.
that's if you love those games, I'm happy for you. Keep loving those games. Wolves is not going to be the game that you're going to love, though. I still recommend people play it because they might find something to love. But if you're not a fan of like this genre of game in this universe, like you're not going to find something here that is suddenly going to change your mind. Is what I would say.
Yeah, that's fair. And so there's a question I've often wondered. Is well, okay, I'll just ask it outright. Which Mechassault do you guys prefer, Mechassault 1 or Mechassault 2?
Founder, you go first. Let us know. What do you think?
Well, I prefer Mechassault 2 because of how it goes from place to place. I don't know. I'm just I've always been for action and keeping moving, and I like the textures of they're a bit of an upgrade from MA Mechassault 1. But when you think about it, like Mechassault 1 has far more vehicles and stuff you get to fight, and Mechassault 2 is kind of not. But I grew up with Mechassault 2. That's what I like to stick with. That's my favorite.
I think I'd say that Mechassault 1 is my favorite, even though I've grown up with Mechassault 2. I have more nostalgia for Mechassault 2, but I don't think that's a fair metric. I like being able to pick whichever mechs I want at the start of the mission, because you can never, except for a couple missions in Mechassault 2, you might get an option between like two, maybe three mechs in the single player campaign. But I like that option in Mechassault 1. I also like, this is a stupid reason, but I love the infantry in Mechassault 1, where you just shoot them and they just evaporate into a spray of blood and
I,
you're fighting like hundreds at a time. That's great.
Well, I can explain that part to you
Sure.
because I've obsessed both over both games fairly equally. But um, I looked at the inventory really closely in game, and they're just a bunch of boxes and circles glued together. There's no mesh like blending or anything. There's no because all they gotta do is it's just like they're wired together like a mech would be. They're each individual pieces.
yeah, like Final Fantasy VII.
Yep.
Yep.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna for my answer. I'm gonna agree with you, Kilroy. I prefer Mechassault 1 for the same reasons you do for the variety. Although I will concede Mechassault 2 had a killer soundtrack compared to Mechassault 1. I think Mechassault 2 had a way better soundtrack, way more fleshed out. The melodies were like so iconic. Anyone who's played Mechassault 2 even once can recall the Dante melody on a whim because it's just so good. And I mean, what's funny enough is that was just stock music they bought from DeWolf Music, which is
Yep.
so hilarious. But it worked, man. And I love them both. Don't get me wrong. To say I love one more than the other is not to say I dislike the other. The only one I've never ever actually played was Phantom War. I don't think anyone's played Phantom War.
I
Yeah.
played
Um,
it. Crap.
but like,
And it's hard for me to
Mech,
beat.
have you? I,
I,
I see. I Mechasalt 1. You know what? It's the small things about Mechasalt 1 that I love. I love, for example, that in Mechasalt 1, they brought over those little red beacons and stuff that you'd see on the mechs in MechWarrior 4. And like you'd see like the spotlights, like mechs had spotlights and little beacons on the top and stuff, like really subtle details. Like if an aircraft was flying overhead, they would need to see those beacons so they don't crash into the mech, if they're in the dark and stuff. Like I loved those. I loved that a lot more than I loved the just like the glow in Mechasalt 2 because like it just felt so much more like something we would see in our world. It really captivated my imagination. Like my first memories that I ever have are of playing Mechasalt 1 on the original Xbox. Like I was only born in '97, so right around the time I started remembering things is it fits the timeline. I love this game. Like Mechasalt 1 was such a good game, and Mechasalt 2 was a good game too. The only thing that I think was really holding it back was the movement speed. The movement speed was cut by 25 to 50% across the board.
Was it?
yeah,
Yes.
Oh, I
it's
didn't
recognized.
notice that.
It's
Notice in Mechasalt 1, mechs animate a lot faster. That's no
Oh.
coincidence. If you notice in Mechasalt 1, when you run through water at like full speed and you go through water and it slows you down, that is about the speed of how the animations play in Mechasalt 2. It's about the same speed. And
Huh.
that's because the water cuts your speed down by about 25 to 50%. So like yeah, the movement speed really hurt in Mech Assault 2. I wish things were a little bit quicker. And also getting out of the mech was not, in my opinion, not very well implemented. You'd get out, press a few buttons, get back in the mech, and it didn't really contribute anything to the experience. All it did was interrupt the action, really.
I
And
did like the
so
one stealth mission though, where you have to sneak around the
I
city.
I loved that mission.
Yeah.
I I loved it. That was such a cool thing. Finding the right time to cross the street so the Mad Cat doesn't see you was so cool. Like that's such a name me one Mech Warrior game that allows you to do that. that's the drawback of Mech Warrior right there
Mhm.
compared to Mech. I think is like they don't being in a sim is really cool, but like you cannot have that kind of experience in a Mech Warrior game. Mech Warrior 5 is as close as it gets, but you're just in the hangar and the mechs aren't doing anything anyway.
We don't talk about Mech Warrior 5. Let's just forget that one.
We didn't talk about the Elder Code.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love them all. And I'm sorry for the long-winded answer. Mechassault 1 was definitely my favorite out of the series.
Mhm.
Still have not played Phantom War. Might emulate it at some point, but I'm not really like eager to do it.
So, speaking of Phantom War, I was looking at it earlier as I was doing a little research for this session, and what the hell is that mech on the cover? Because it's not a Ragnarok. It looks more like a Grizzly or something, but it's not in the game. It just looks like a something they made for the
Boss?
cover art and nothing else.
Isn't that the last?
What'd you say? My cat stepped on the mic.
It's
I said,
stop.
isn't that the last boss?
I have no idea. Maybe.
Do we have to find footage?
I tried finding footage and I couldn't find it, so I think people just don't care about the game enough to
I
record
I
it.
wish I wish. See, that's the thing. Is like I wish that like it was. I wish Phantom War was a better game because I mean, on the whole, well, I wish it was good enough to actually warrant playing it. Because if it was, then I maybe I could bring some of that stuff into Wolves. It certainly had some unique designs. Like there were like the Raptor 2 model in that game is pretty neat. In that, like instead of having like the V-shaped cockpit, it just had one line going straight down the middle, almost like the Venator helmet in Halo 4. If for people who have played 343's Halo games, um it was just kind of like one glass stripe that goes right down the middle. I thought that was a neat change. I'd actually consider like putting that in as a skin in Wolves just for the fun of it. But like, it's just a shame that Phantom War was not like a better game. I don't really
Yeah.
know what was going on with that deal. I have no idea like why Phantom War was even made in the first place. There's so I mean, the development of any of the Mechassault games is not very well documented, which I think is why we have people like Founder like trying to get into all the nooks and crannies to find out whatever information they can. Is because like there's no documentation. Nobody knows what the hell happened when this game was being developed.
Yeah, it was like it was just given to us. It's just here, out of the freaking void. Here's your game.
Yeah, it's like it's crazy. When I think about it, it's like there's so little known, which is why I think the Mechassault 3 leaks came as such a huge shock to everybody when those were discovered. It was like, wow, that this was a game that happened. There's some documentation, there's some ideas and actual concept art on paper that we can see. Because Mechassault didn't even have any concept art. You can't find anything. Like there's nothing.
Oh, you say that, but then we found like images of that were actually hung up at Day One Studios, and those are
Yeah. The
wow.
Mechassault 2 used some of its concept art in the campaign, in the cutscenes, like the Ragnarok army and stuff.
Oh,
Um, but like, but yeah, I have some of the renders that they had hung up in their office. I have the actual ones on like the original, like I think it's foam board.
Oh,
They're
wow.
like prints on foam board. Yeah, I have two of the prints of concept art that is not on the internet. I haven't even scanned them yet. I
Scan
just
them,
have like
damn
a
it.
I have pictures on my phone. I sent them to Founder. Um, but yeah, no, like there's so little known, which I think is fascinating. Actually,
but I'm
like
curious. Can I interrupt you a little bit?
yeah, go for it.
All right, I'm just wondering about like they said like for Mecha Assault 2, there's like they put like something percentage amount more detail on mechs, and during this like this really old documentary, and I was like, what? The texture quality is fairly low. I'm wondering if these textures are just really low quality and like compressed after, but their original bases were really high quality, high res stuff.
Well, as a developer, I can definitely answer that question for you and tell you that like when you make those textures, I mean, so say I don't know the software they used back then, but say you used Illustrator, for example. I don't know if they were painted on by hand at that time because it's so old. Like I don't even know if Substance Painter exists back then. But like there is of course the one that you actually paint is the highest quality version that could exist, and then they export it at a lower quality for its needs. So like for all we know, the quality of the asset could be infinitely higher than what's actually in the game. That we'll just never see it because they just exported what they needed. So that's an interesting thing to think about. Is like, yeah, I like the prints I have up on my wall, or well, they're not up on my wall. They're actually like leaning against the wall on a shelf. But like they were rendered out of Max. I don't know what year of Max it was, but they were rendered out of 3ds Max, and the textures on these prints are maybe even higher quality than they are in the Mechassault 2 campaign.
I wish I
Like
could get my hands on those. I wish I could.
I want to get them scanned, but the problem is like a scanner kind of like you run the paper through and then it kind of like spits it out at the bottom. Some scanners, any of the scanners that are big enough are gonna like scan it that way. Because these are like decently sized prints. These are they're not quite poster sized, but they're still decently sized. And yeah, I probably paid about $40 for both of these from a dude in Chicago.
God.
That's worth it.
In Chicago.
In Chicago, I told him he had them up on auction on eBay, and I told him to name a price. I said, "Name a price, I'll pay it right now." He said like something like $35, $40. I was like, "Fuck, dude, are you kidding me? Of course I'm gonna buy those."
I'm so
So
jealous.
yeah, it's neat. I can't talk too much about like the process I went through, but I did have them verified. Like they are verifiably. I even have I have pictures of when they were hanging on the walls. So like these are verifiably the ones. And I mean that is I think that's one of the craziest possessions I own. It's one of the most insane. I have like Halo action figures from 2001 and like but this shit is the craziest shit I own. I mean, it's nuts. It's a piece of a development cycle we know almost nothing about.
Yeah, imagine like something like fucking like cubicles or something, and how they look off to like maybe the wall in the corner of their eye and say, "Oh, there's that thing there," and they probably didn't think too much of it. But here we are. We're like, "Wow, what happened there and what happened here?" All fun to think about.
Yeah.
The actually one of the images I have, I'm sorry, I don't mean to like ramble on forever, but one of the images I have is of the original Owens model, which I sent to you, founder. The one before when they didn't I guess it was like Wolves. It's funny because Wolves did a lot of the same things they did at first. So we intended to have mechs that could sidestep, and there's actually old gameplay footage of Wolves with the Locust with no like pelvis, so it could like sidestep. Um, we had that exact same thing. It was obvious they wanted to have it so the Owens was just the torso with the legs, like it's classic design, and they just could not make it work, I guess, with that engine.
Huh.
So that's another interesting fact. I sent the pictures to you, founder. I'll put them in fucking I'll put them in the chat. But yeah, cool stuff. Anyway, sorry. Kilroy, what were you gonna say before I cut you off? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude there.
Oh, I think I've. Oh, right. I was just gonna say, it's surprising the things that suddenly become valuable. You might be working on a project with some nothing little thing that you think is like a joke or just a piece of concept art that's just hanging in the background, and then all of a sudden, 10 years later, it's this big thing. Like, I can't say too much, but I was working on a project for a studio, and they're like, hey, over in Soundstage A, they're recording something for this movie called Sharknado. That's all we have. We only have the title, and that's it. I'm like, oh, that sounds stupid. And all of a sudden, it's this big multi-film franchise thing, apparently.
So here it is, by the way. Actually, you know what? I don't need to rely on you. You've literally got our windows open on screen. I can just do this. Um there. So there it is. This is a partial scan that I did of the image. So here it
God,
is.
that looks so cursed. That
Oh,
freaking like
wow.
Yeah.
they even modeled the missiles and put cannons on the top of
Well,
the
see,
rockets. Like,
I mean, that's the Mech Warrior 3 design, isn't it? That's literally what it looked like in Mech Warrior 3, if I remember correctly.
It had the bottom cannons, if I recall correctly, not the ones on top.
But I mean, like the lack of like the twist, like it can't
Oh, yeah,
twist.
yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
accurate.
Also, notice the texture resolution. Like that's what I mean. Is like the texture resolution here is pretty damn high. Um, you can see like the little. That's the same AA logo that's on the Atlas as well on the Owens's legs there, and you can see that in the texture resolution, which is why I think that this is super cool stuff.
I like the glowing eyes on the infantry.
it
I
looks scary. They're like
I
get out of here, stalker.
I don't even. I wonder if those are even the meshes they use in the game because you said they were assembled with blocks, but that actually looks a little bit more like high res than just blocks.
I can identify the blocks there. I can see like
Yeah,
on the kneecaps and stuff.
pretty impressive work though. I gotta say for the time, like Mechassault 2. I was talking to a few friends about this. Um, Mechassault 2 had probably had better looking facial animations than any game of its time. Like Halo 2 launched the exact same year as Mechassault 2. They Because of Halo 2, Microsoft pushed Mechassault 2 to after Christmas. So like the they kind of like sent Mechassault 2 out to die, unfortunately. But like you could see the quality of those facial animations in Mechassault 2 were like way ahead of anything in its time, like in the world of gaming. Really cool stuff, and those were in engine. Those were not pre-rendered. So super cool stuff. I could nerd out about facial animations all day.
Yeah, I like not only the facial animations, but it feels like the characters are a lot stronger in Mech Assault 2, which is another bonus. In Mech Assault 1, everyone's faceless except for Foster and Natalia, and they're kind of forgettable, if we're honest, in that game.
Um, well, this is the thing, right? Mechassault 1 was like really popular for the time because like I mean people didn't have a lot to play at the time on the original Xbox, like Halo and Mechassault. And Mechassault was the first game, just one among the first games to support Xbox Live. So there wasn't a whole lot to play if you wanted to jump on the Xbox Live bandwagon. But I think, and this is the thing, this is where I think modern MechWarrior falls short. It's because the mecha genre is kind of niche and it's struggling, but I don't think the people who loved Mechassault, and I don't mean everyone, I mean like maybe like the casual audience who really latched onto it. I don't think they loved Mechassault because of the mechs. I think they loved Mechassault because the characters were good, just good enough, good slash just good enough to be compelling and to actually like pull you into the BattleTech universe a little bit.
Oh yeah, I certainly think that was an
That
element. I mean, it starts with a joke. Like you think you're going to be in this badass mech, but instantly it's, oh, I took the parts from the heavy mechs to fix the light mech. Like, oh, you freaking idiot! But it immediately starts you off on the right foot.
Yeah, like this is where modern mech warrior I think falls short is like you need to give people more than mechs to be attached to because mechs, unfortunately, man, in 2020, I don't know if mechs are enough to carry a mech game.
Oh, they're
You
certainly
need
not.
you need a universe. Like I mean, you could see it in like modern mech. I'm doing the quote unquote thing with my fingers. The modern like mech franchises like Titanfall, for example, which is debatable. Like it's just a shooter with mechs, but like now you have Apex, and Apex completely cut them out. And Apex is like infinitely more popular than Titanfall 2 was. So it's like I don't think that's a coincidence. I think if you want a game in a mech universe to succeed, you need to put and take special care to give the audience characters they can really latch onto. And you cannot underestimate the importance of a good soundtrack. That is pivotal.
Yeah, I think MechWarrior 5, it it failed on the characters because I didn't even know that the main character or that you are introduced to was supposed to be your dad until after he was dead. Just like, oh, I thought he was just your training sergeant or whatever. And the other character's just outright annoying. The soundtrack, I think, is okay, actually. It's grown on me as, like, casual gaming soundtrack, but there's
The
nothing that
main
really makes you go, hell yeah, it's awesome.
the main theme is all right. But everything else, like, I don't know.
Hmm.
The Well, the thing is like I think they tried to. The problem is, and oh my god, dude, I'm cringing just like talking about it. But like the problem is, they tried to execute like a more serious story, but like the cutscenes look like bad machinima.
Yeah,
So
they
like
do.
you're throwing serious themes at the player, which by the way are kind of like overdone anyway. Oh, my dad died. Like you're throwing these serious themes at the player, but you're doing it through machinima. It's like oh my god, you ever watch a bad Halo 3 slash Halo Reach machinima back when
Watch
that
them,
was
I made
popular?
them.
Like everyone was, dude.
I've seen a
Those,
few, yeah.
those machinimas, like some of them were really good when they executed the process like correctly, but some of them were fucking awful. Like some of them were like, oh my god, dude, like you're trying to be an edge lord and you're putting like a black and white or like like a kind of washed out filter over everything and turning up the lens flares to 1 billion and trying to like tell this story in your writings. Like that's Mech Warrior 5. It's like a bad Halo 3 machinima. And it was like,
Yeah.
and I don't mean to sound this harsh because I'm in the unique position where it's like as the head of New Day Fiction, it's almost like I have to be careful what I say, but also like I do respect that, Russ Bullock and the people at PGI were probably just doing the best with the resources they had. But man, this was not the way to go about it. Like, if you don't have those tools, don't try and do it. I mean, like, you don't need to be serious to have good characters. I mean, you want to talk about machinima? Let's talk about Red versus Blue for a second. People love those
Yeah.
characters. And the show couldn't be less serious. Uh, the first 5 seasons, anyway. I can't say much about the stuff afterwards. When the show did get a little bit more serious, but like people people fundamentally love those iconic characters because they were just funny and they were goofing around, and you could see yourself being one of them. And that the mech warrior in Mechassault is someone you could see yourself being, and then you're surrounded by all these goofball characters. Your major
Yeah.
is flirting with you, like she implies that you guys are banging every night, like after the mission. Foster's like Adam, like I made a tweet. I said he's like the Adam Sandler of the BattleTech universe. That's Foster. I mean, like that.
Yeah.
I think Mech Warrior could learn a lot from Mech Assault. I think that's the department it could learn from.
Even
Like,
Mech Warrior 2, which is so old, and it hardly has a dozen voice lines in the whole game, it has funny characters. It has the
oh
crazy
my
drill
god,
instructor,
Instructor.
yeah, who pilots the catapult, and he just savors
It was
killing people.
the Mad Cat. He was in a Mad Cat.
No,
I
it
was
was a
talking about
catapult.
mercenaries.
Are we talking? Wait. Are we talking Mech Warrior 2?
Mech Warrior 2 mercenaries specifically. But also, there was Mech Warrior 2. He drove the Mad Cat or the Timberwolf, or not the Mad Cat or Mad Dog, depending on which faction you played as. And he was fun too. He treated you like you were a pet. Just
It's like,
adorable.
you do what I tell you to. My dog does what I tell it to. I like my dog. It's like, dude, come on. That is just as good as anything Lieutenant Foster had to say. Like that is like quality. I'm doing the chef's kiss thing with my fingers. That is quality voice acting, right? Like it didn't even need to be like it sounded like the dude recorded it on speakerphone. Like it didn't need to be good quality. It just needed to be like funny and kind of like, oh, okay, I see this is the kind of game I'm getting into. Like it's not too serious. Like the subject matter is serious, but like Mech Warrior 2 is formatted in a way where you could totally ignore the story if you wanted to and just go mission
Yeah.
to mission.
And you
Like
could,
I'm just playing Mech Warrior 2 for the first time now, actually. I've been running through Mech Warrior 2. I started with Clan Wolf and I've been working through it.
oh,
But yeah.
wow.
Ooh.
Yeah. And if you want to see an example of how it's done badly, go play MechWarrior Ghost Bear's Legacy, the expansion pack for MechWarrior 2.
Oh God.
There is not a single humorous bone in any of the dialogue. It's very dry. Everyone's trying way too hard. But the quality is the same as in MechWarrior 2. It's just because it's trying to be serious in every single cutscene, it comes off as lame.
Ian, in terms of quality for the actual expansion pack, I'm gonna have to disagree with that because when I played through it, it was just a buggy mess that kept crashing 24/7. And
That might have been, I mean, MechWarrior 2, any version of MechWarrior 2 is really hard to run on modern PCs. Best way
no,
to do
here's
it.
the thing: I got Mech 2 running just fine off of a 1.0 version disk using MechVM.
Yeah, what I'm
Ghost Bear's
talking about
Legacy,
is
however, just decided not to work half
See,
the time.
I'm doing it on DOSBox.
yeah, I'm just talking about the narration quality or the voices, not the gameplay itself.
Ah, okay.
But like, yeah, like I I'm actually kind of digging MechWarrior 2, though I hate the controls. I found someone who made who made a WASD format, and it works great. Other than the fact that the legs always follow your torso when you're turning with the mouse, and there's no way to change it. Like, not that I know, anyways, because it's tricky to. You have to edit like a text file to change the controls.
I use stock
Huh.
controls because I like paid.
Dude,
And also it works.
those controls make me want to die. Like, I fucking hate those controls.
I mean, I've played with
But
worse. I've played the original X-Wing on keyboard.
see,
That was fun.
narratively, like when it comes to games like MechWarrior, though, even though it's funny, like people are always getting. You ever notice people always get fucked up in the intro cutscenes for MechWarrior?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's kind
someone
of
is
a
always.
running theme.
It's like, dude, like the thing with Wolves, like if I ever made a campaign for Wolves, like I really wanna do something a little bit more optimistic, like a little bit more fun. Like I wanna break the lore to a point where our main character is the entire soundtrack would, and this is actually something, this is a concept I picked up from Scalebound before that was canceled. Because in Scalebound, the main character would put on headphones and that's when the music would come in. I think that would be the coolest shit ever. If like you had this young mech warrior who was a little bit overconfident, and he was kind of like he was kind of goofing around. He never quite took it seriously, even though like the people who trained him, or maybe he comes from a long line of mech warriors who like take it very seriously. But he just kind of puts on a pair of headphones and just has a good time. Like that's I really want to see a mech warrior game that has fun with it. Like really just because you realize, like, you take a step back, you look at BattleTech, you're like, holy shit, like this shit is actually silly. BattleTech
Oh
is a
yeah.
silly universe. Like, and I'd like a
Very.
game. I'd like to see a game that's silly. And so, like, I mean, that's an avenue I could take with Wolves. Like, as a developer, I have the power to make that vision of a BattleTech story if I wanted to. Unfortunately, I'm not crazy enough to even attempt it because the man hours required to even make a basic campaign is, I mean, that would be 2 years of extra dev time tacked on, and that's being generous, I'd say. It took us
Also,
3 years to get where we are.
if you want to play silly BattleTech, just play tabletop BattleTech. The shit you can do in that is funny to endless regards. You can fail a piloting check, fall on your ass, and blow up by lighting an ammo bin in your leg.
The problem is, though, is like, and I'm gonna catch some serious shit for this. I find the idea of like playing tabletop and going through these like 6 hour campaigns or even longer campaigns, like nothing sounds more boring to me than playing traditional tabletop BattleTech. Even the harebrained schemes interpretation, I had to force myself to finish. And it's not because it's not a good game, it's because I just I just don't like the genre. Like it's just so boring to me. I can't do it. Like I had to force myself to finish. I and again, like HBS BattleTech was probably one of the highest quality BattleTech games we've seen over the past like 10, 15 years.
Mech or Mercs. Well, technically that's a Mech Warrior game, not BattleTech. Continue.
But like it's just that genre. Like I don't like how slow it is. I'm very much a Gen Zer where like I just want to see big flashy lights and I want to destroy buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a different.
BattleTech just is not streamlined well enough to be enjoyable to the average gamer. It's like if you're an engineer or someone who really enjoys savoring the nitty-gritty details of a game's mechanics, you might like it, but it's not like D&D, and you really
Yeah.
have to make it homebrew if you're gonna actually have fun, which
Or you
is,
have to play Alpha Strike, but I don't think
yeah.
anyone Alpha Strike.
I play Alpha Strike.
Is it good?
It's actually fairly good, yeah.
I thought about buying the Clan Invasion box just because I want the miniatures, because the miniatures look really nice. But I would never. The thing is, like, I have no desire to actually play that. Like, the thing is, like, and I think we talked about this before, and I had a really hard time communicating the point that I was trying to get across. But I don't love the grandiose, huge scale of BattleTech. What I fell in love with was the kind of like Mechassault alternate universe because goddamn, like even though it broke lore in every conceivable way, at least they gave me some good fucking characters. Like, at least they gave me a story that kind of worked and
Yeah.
like go through and it kept my attention because it was easy, it was linear, it made sense. I didn't have to read like 10 paragraphs of source material to understand what the hell they were talking about. The most obscure thing they talk about in Mechassault is Comstar. And literally the only like the connection they make to Comstar is something you visually see because the word of Blake attacks planets in the inner sphere, and when you line up all the planets that got attacked by the word of Blake in the Mechassault universe, they formed the Comstar logo. They mapped out the word of Blake occupation was to map out the Comstar logo with I think Terra being in either the center or one of the points, like one of the top points. So like that's how the Wolf Dragoons figure it out. Is they're like, oh shit, well if they follow the Comstar logo, then they're going to attack this place next, and or they already have this land, so we're just going to go to Terra.
Amazing.
It's like, but I mean, it's kind of dumb sounding, but at least like when you see it and you're like playing the game and you're kind of like immersed in the story, at least it makes sense.
Yeah, it fits the logic of the rest of the game, which is arcadey, fun, fast-paced, and you don't think about it too much.
Yeah, you just kind of go in, you have fun. Also,
Literally shoot first, ask questions later.
people are going to give me shit for this too, but I think Mechassault 2 has one of the best elemental designs ever seen in a BattleTech game. The way they redesigned the elemental was fucking beautiful.
Yeah, I was actually thinking
Glorious.
about it earlier, how I would intentionally seek out multiplayer maps with the elemental just to play as it, because it looks so cool.
Going commando, founder? Ah,
Yes.
yeah, going
Yes.
commando, bro. Yes, sir.
I like that map too because it had the little cruise ship out there, the battleship.
Mm-hmm. That was a cool map. That was on Dante, and for the uninitiated, like that was a map on Dante. It was just a short little map, and it's called Going Commando because there's no mechs on it. It's battle armor only, and you saw these little battle armors jumping all over the place, and the controls were kind of touchy, and it was just good dumb fun, and like I loved the climbing claw too. You just you're on a building, you just
Yeah.
fucking like you can climb on shit. You can attach to your mechs, your teammates' mechs backs and ride them around the battlefield. You can neurohack, which I mean, I question that as a game mechanic, not because it doesn't fit the lore, but because it's kind of jank and like the mech pilot almost always wins in a multiplayer situation. Like it was like the mech pilot had the advantage every time, and like they would have to like almost intentionally screw up to not buck off the battle armor. But
Well,
like it was super cool stuff.
I mean, rather than you don't have to actually press all the buttons to get that battle armor off of you. You can just activate your defense system if you have shields.
Yeah, you could do that too. If you had shields or target jamming, you could instantly kick the battle armor off, which was pretty nuts. So you'd spend a meter, and you'd basically be safe for the entire duration of that shield. That was a cool way that the mechanics kind of worked together in that game.
I wonder how
Yeah.
that works though. Like, if it was real, it would just cut off the guy's hand while he's in there. He's like, "Oh shit!"
Ah, yeah.
Probably would
Um,
have just shocked him and sent him flying back.
but
Oh,
I did really like the elemental. I thought it was cool. It was no longer this big, bulky, like thing with a huge backpack on it, and it looked kind of silly. Like this thing kind of looked like the nano suit in Crisis before
It
Crisis
did.
was even a thing. Yeah, it was like Crisis with SRM2s on it. Like it was nuts. It was really really cool, and it was just so good. It was so good. Why can't we just have that again? I don't know. It's like fuck, man.
Because the intellectual holders of BattleTech is a music company.
Well, I mean, even like even PGI could have done it if they wanted to. I mean, fuck, they put the blades on the blood asp. You can get the blades as a bolt on, but it's just I now keep in mind with the new Clan Invasion box, I actually do quite like the elementals in the new art style. I think they're awesome looking, but man, the Mechassault 2 Elemental would be so cool as like a variant in BattleTech if you could just get like the cut down like Mechassault Elemental, because I think the Mechassault Elemental could carry it carried way less weapons than like the other variants of the Elemental that you would see in BattleTech. Like it had like almost no weapons with the advantage of this one being the climbing claw, obviously, and the mobility. Like you could be mobile and move around in ways that the Elemental in other MechWarrior games just couldn't. You know what I mean? So it's cool. Like it's all ideas. It's all things that you can do in just talking about it. Like you can feel the excitement, like just talking about it and theorizing about like where could we take this gameplay concept in like a modern, even in a MechWarrior game, like where could you take that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm going to be right back, guys. You can keep going.
Okay.
So hold on. You mean to tell me that the elementals from Mechassault 2, that wasn't really official?
No, the
That was
entire
that was a
Mechassault series is basically non-canonical.
well,
Why
none of it.
bro? Why even
None,
live, bro?
none of it is. But no BattleTech video game is canon.
Why
That's
even
Actual
live, bro?
BattleTech is canon.
what Harebrained.
Yeah, Harebrained Scheme BattleTech is technically canon now. The Aurigan Restoration is a canon event. Some
And
elements from the game, like the Argo, aren't canon yet, but I only think that's a matter of time.
and MechWarrior 3 got a book, I think. But
Yeah.
beyond that, like none of the characters in
Yeah, none of the characters.
none of like the events in these games
I
are
think
canon for the
I
most
think
part.
the most canon games are MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries, because that took place during the FedCom Civil War, and MechWarrior 2 31st Century Combat, because War of Refusal.
Cool. MechWarrior 2 is actually a cool game.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to derail the discussion because we are focusing on Mechassault in this episode, but MechWarrior 2 I think is a game that would be worth remastering.
It's been
Like
worth remastering for the past 10 years, and
like
nobody's decided to take it up.
like I said, I've just been playing it for the first time, and when I did play it, I was like, this game has a lot of charm to it. Like, oh, you take it. I'm in a weird situation. Like, you've got someone who grew up on Mechassault, played console games for his entire life, just built a PC like a year and a half ago, and like is now playing MechWarrior 2 with the influence. Like, I've been completely influenced by modern games to go back and play MechWarrior 2 has been a really eye-opening experience. It's
Yeah,
like, wow,
MechWarrior 2 is astounding for a game from 1995.
like well it's like man, well first of all it's like man, these controls are fucked, and like there's no real way to fix them without breaking the game, like because like you could turn off certain controls if you left anything unmapped, the game would crash. Like you couldn't, at least on DOSBox. So like
That's
that
why I use MechVM.
the Mech Warrior 2, if I were going to do a remaster of Mech Warrior 2, well, first I would have the legacy controls as an option right away. Like you have to keep those controls because they're different and they suck, but they suck in my perspective. They don't suck in everyone else's. Everyone else seems to like the controls. So like obviously I wouldn't touch the controls, but I would in almost by default have new modern WASD controls. Because like that's
Yeah.
just like with the ability to easily switch back to legacy
Yeah,
if that's
modern
desired.
control similar to like MechWarrior Online, which I think did a fairly decent WASD
Yeah,
setup.
I agree. I think MechWarrior Online actually has fine controls. It's actually a good feeling game. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not a bad feeling game. And also, and I've been a big champion for this for a while, and we may have talked about it in a previous episode. Um, I want to get this shit mapped to a controller and have it actually work. I believe it's possible, and I've made a couple images that have, and I think again I have no idea if we talked about this on a previous episode or not. I don't even know if the episode we talked about this even came out. I think we might have scrapped it, but I made a fan made control scheme for MechWarrior 5, and just to see if it was possible. And what I did was I used double tap on the face buttons as an alternate control method, just like you would see in like Destiny 2. You can like dash in Destiny 2 if you double tap B. It's like once you bring those into account, like once you bring double tap into the equation, or like any other kind, or like hold, or like any other kind of alternate input method, like all of a sudden the world of getting this shit on controller opens up to you, and it's like, wow, you know what? This is possible. Not
Yeah.
only is it possible, but it can work and it can be fun. And then once you have it mapped to a controller, then we can have the discussion of a console port as well. Like that's it, it opens, all you have to do is map to a controller and this whole other discussion opens up to you.
Yeah, but well, PGI is probably never going to do that unless
PGI would never do it.
No.
I don't think, and to some degree I don't necessarily want them to do it. Not because I don't think they would do a good job, but because artistically, I think they would probably just use the mechs they used in MechWarrior Online, and I don't think that's a good fit for a game like MechWarrior
That doesn't
2.
fit for MechWarrior 2, no.
No. I think it would have to be the original TRO designs. Like it would be like who's the guy that made that awesome Timberwolf model? You know the one I'm talking about, the one that they're trying to like mod into MechWarrior 5 right now. That old fashioned Timberwolf that one
like
guy modded.
long barrels, I'm trying to remember.
I have an image of it. I don't quite know where I put it though, but I have an image of it somewhere. It's on like Twitter. But pretty astounding work though that this guy did. Like those models would be perfect for a MechWarrior 2 remaster. Like mwah, just classic TRO stuff. The the hair the Harmony Gold stuff the Harmony Gold suit was dismissed with prejudice. And that's an easy thing to forget because we talk about the classic designs and people are like, "Oh, you can't do that." You absolutely can because it was dismissed with prejudice. Like they can't even take it to court anymore. It's over. Like the suit is over. So like that's why some of the unseen mechs have started being reintroduced back into the series.
Although I wish the Marauder would have its original art style back. Right now
well,
it's just kind of a slim, lean thing when it was originally a very... Yeah.
That was a decision made by PGI's artists, not so much as a result of the legal battle. That was just like, hey, we don't want the dorsal cannon to be centered anymore. You know what I mean?
And people lost their shit respectively because that was a dumb decision.
It's those little things that make a difference. Like it is 100% like it doesn't seem to someone on the outside looking at BattleTech for the first time, they might see that and be like, okay, what's the problem? But like to someone who like knows BattleTech, even me, someone who grew up on Mechassault, like I go back, I play the old games, I read the old books and stuff, I see that old Marauder, and it's like, man, why didn't they just center the dorsal cannon? Like, why didn't they just do that? It's like, what was the philosophy here? You know?
Yeah.
They had everything correct.
I was
the dorsal cannon.
I've been playing a lot of MechWarrior Online lately, partly because I hate myself and partly because I really want to enjoy it. And just specifically, their weapon designs are some of the ugliest I've ever seen in any game. They seem to have a particular hang-up on making sure that the game model represents the current mech's loadout accurately, but with all disregard for whether or not it actually looks good. So you'll get mechs like the Gargoyle, where normally it has a cannon for the autocannons on the arms, but instead there's a variant where it can have a missile instead. But instead of putting the missile launcher where the cannon would be, they put it awkwardly off to the side and just have this weird carved out gap where the cannon would be. And it's ugly as stink. And that's just everywhere throughout the game. It's just very poorly designed.
I agree with you, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, actually, one of the biggest sinners is the Mad Dog, in my opinion. Now, keep in mind, I actually do like the kind of like square box lasers. They don't just look like a gun barrel, they actually look like kind of this laser diode setup. Like it makes sense. I actually do like the box lasers, but on the Mad Dog, dude, when you put the lasers on, and instead of being like the long, thin cylindrical barrels, it's now like a box just sticking out from the
Yeah,
arm. It's
it's
like,
just,
dude, oh god,
uh,
no. And
Yeah.
like you can see that on some of the other mechs. Actually, I think one of the mechs that really hurts me to see is the Blood Asp, because they made the shoulder cannons on the Blood Asp way too big. You put in like a Gauss rifle into the shoulder cannons, and it just kind of like sticks out of the bottom. It doesn't even like take up one. It doesn't even take up like 1/3 of the space of the shoulder cannons. It's like, why did you do it like that? And even the arms on the Blood Asp are just big flat surfaces, and they kind of just clip the weapons into it. It's like,
Yeah.
why would you do that?
The Centurion is pretty egregious in its errors because there's one variant of the Centurion that has 3 ballistics on the one arm. But instead of like changing the model for that one variant, every single variant has 3 slots on the arm. And if you have only one ballistic, it's just awkwardly glued on top of it. It doesn't even line up with any of the slots. It just looks so lazy. And all I can think is I'm not going to play this variant of mech because it looks ugly. Like, I don't want to pilot a mech that looks like garbage.
Yes. I'm trying to think of what am I thinking of? Well, I also think another mech that kind of suffers from this is also the Summoner. The Summoner, for all intents and purposes, the Summoner looks okay, but the why does the missile pod on the shoulder never quite look right? You know what I'm
Um,
saying? Like, it never quite looks right. And this is the same thing with the Uziel as well. Is well, for one, the Uziel, you can never even use the center missile pod because that hard point is weak as hell in MechWarrior Online for whatever reason.
yeah.
I but like, man, it sucks that like the summoner never quite looks right to me. I see it and I'm just like, why doesn't the missile box quite look right?
It I don't know how recently you played it, but they did change it so that the missile box changes size whenever you equip different types of missiles, and so it's either always too small or too big, and it's like slightly too far forwards on the mech. So it's just
It's
weird.
never long enough. Like you look at like, oh my god, you know what? I am going to use the Mechassault summoner as an example of a good summoner here because I do think it's a good looking summoner. It's got a really nice long missile tube on it. You
Mhm.
notice that? And it's on a bit of an angle, so it kind of like arcs the missiles up and then they come down. Like I think that's perfect. I really dislike the way it looks in MechWarrior Online personally. It's either too small or too big, and it's not quite long enough.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know, man. I could complain about this all day. This is supposed to be a Mechasol podcast. I'm
I
complaining
know
about
we keep complaining about PGI games even though we're
shit,
supposed
man.
to talk about other stuff.
No. It's fair. I mean, that's the relevant discussion.
Yeah.
That things are happening with MechWarrior Online right now that even just a year ago were considered like, oh yeah, PGI is never going to do this. Like there's one guy in the Wolves server who was like, you guys are idiots for thinking PGI is ever going to change this game. And then like a day later, they came out and said, oh yeah, by the way, like we're supporting the game again, and we were like, no way.
Yeah. I almost
It's
want them not to, because half the time they try to improve it, they break it in some way. I'm just like, stay away from it,
it's just,
please. It's
yeah.
broken enough.
Did someone say volumetric scaling?
leave 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 McCoyer Online to just alone. We don't
But
need
here's the
another
thing.
From the Depths release again.
But here's the thing, right? Like, and I like MechWarrior Online conceptually, and I want an I. It's just this one is not personally like how I would have liked to see it done. Now, I don't mean just gameplay, because the gameplay actually I think still holds up. Like there are moments in that game that are amazing. You're like, oh my god, this feels amazing to play. It's actually like artistically even. It's just sometimes mechs look great, and then other times they don't look great. And like, I just wish we could rebuild the game with some new art that kind of respected or even looked like the clan invasion art we have now from the new box set. Like I just don't like the looks of the mechs as much. That's one of my biggest gripes with MechWarrior Online. Actually, is like the mechs kind of look funny. They don't look quite right to me. A lot of them, like the Uziel, for example. How do you fuck up the Uziel?
Yeah,
It's
the
literally a walking watermelon with legs and a missile
Like
tube.
they
How?
just squished it. They just
yeah.
like squished it.
It looks like a compressed JPEG.
Yeah, it's supposed to be smaller so it can fit inside the dropship, which I don't know why they just don't tolerate it clipping through the dropship during the
Or
5-second
change,
intro or
or
something.
just stop using a leopard.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
does
Yeah.
it have to be a leopard? Why couldn't it be? You know what dropship we haven't seen in a while? We have not seen the Talon dropship. It was
Oh
in
my God,
MechWarrior 4,
never.
it was in Mechassault, and we never see. Founder knows because
I,
Founder.
I've looked, and the only place I've seen it is in like maybe MechWarrior 4 Vengeance, like a few times, I think.
It's in
Right?
Mercenaries too, I think.
Mercenaries, and then
MechWarrior 4 Vengeance has the Talon dropship a lot, along with the Rothguard, which
So
is
does
just the Union.
Mercenaries. Like the dropship you're based out of is a Talon. But like you could, or even you know what? Why the hell are we not dropping in Union dropships in MechWarrior Online? This
Yeah,
is
that's my question.
because you know what the thing is now, and this is partially. I would say I'd go out on a limb and say this is partially Mechassault's fault. The Union dropship is probably one of the most iconic dropships in MechWarrior. So, and if it's iconic, like if it is one of the most iconic dropships in MechWarrior, it should be the one we're dropping out of every time because MechWarrior Online is beautiful in that it's the world of BattleTech at a glance in the form of like a multiplayer shooter. So like when you show stuff like a dropship, it needs to be not just a dropship, but the dropship. It needs to be the dropship everyone recognizes.
like kind of like Halo with it. You can't just be a Spartan. You have to be the Spartan.
Well,
Exactly.
I mean, I disagree. I disagree with that. I mean, like, because like you play as all sorts of different Spartans. You
But
can
you
play as
get what I
various
mean,
people.
though, right? It has to be something you recognize and can affiliate
But like
with what you're playing.
a better example is like I don't want to be dropped off in a generic like dropship. I want to be dropped off in a Pelican. If it's not a Pelican, I don't want it. I want to be dropped off in a Pelican. Like it's the same thing. It's like I want to be dropped off in a Union dropship, and a Union dropship just so happens to be able to facilitate all those big and proportionally weird mechs that they for some reason had to change to fit in a dropship. It's like it wouldn't be a problem if we just dropped in unions. And also it would look super cool to see the enemy's union dropship slowly floating back up into atmosphere as you walk to the battlefield.
Yeah. And also, those things are loaded for bear, aren't they?
Dude, like this I mean, oh my god. Don't even I'm getting too excited about things that are never gonna happen. This is what it's like being a Mechassault fan.
I know.
Yeah.
You just get excited for shit that's just not going to happen.
Yep.
Like a more artistically classic looking game where you drop in the iconic dropship and you're having oh my god, dude. Ugh. I'm
Wait,
sorry.
Yeah.
I've been going on this entire time. I have not given anyone else a chance to talk. I feel like I've
hold
been
on, hold on.
kind of like
That's
going.
fair.
Yeah.
It's a passionate, eruption of complaints and aspirations and just everything. I feel like we have to sort of go off on our own tangents because there's honestly not that much material to work with to begin with when it comes to Mechassault because it was sort of a flash in the pan thing.
Well, there is like it's what I think where I think the conversation for Mechassault lies is its effect on future titles. Like, yeah, it was a flash in the pan, but it was a flash in the pan that did really well for the Xbox. And
Yeah.
like it,
Yeah.
and I personally believe in I mean Wolves is predicated on this belief that it could do well again. It needs the right people who may not necessarily be us, but like it needs the right people behind it. I don't think Piranha Games is up to the task of making a Mechassault game, to be honest. I actually I if I had to give any BattleTech developer Mechassault to make, I think Harebrained Schemes is up to it because Mitch Gittleman knows Mechassault. Like I don't know if you guys saw his No Guts No Galaxy interview recently. They talked about Mechassault briefly, and he said he was really proud of the product and he was happy with the way it came out. And you could tell like He understood what the game was all about. He wouldn't just try and turn it into some MechWarrior game. Like, I think if you gave it to someone like Mitch Gittleman and his company and Harebrained Schemes, they would produce like a pretty competent entry, a pretty good reboot of Mechassault. I think that'd be sick. I'd be all about that.
Yeah, I think Harebrained Schemes would definitely be the most competent. I mean, FOSSA doesn't exist anymore. I don't think Micropose exists anymore. So,
Micropose has been out of business longer than FASA.
oh wow.
I mean, hey, I'd be willing to do it. Like, if ever we were approached and Microsoft was just like, hey, like we'll give you like X amount of money. Could you make Wolves into a real entry? I'd be like, are you kidding me?
That'd be a fucking dream.
That would be, I mean, it's borderline impossible, but it would be pretty nuts. My hope is to send a message with Wolves that like there is still a community, there are people still playing the game. There are people who are so obsessed and passionate enough that they would actually make their own video game from the ground up with original art. Like I think some people look at the game, because I've actually had conversations that went this way before, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, because an egotistical person I am not. But I've had people come up to me and say like, "Are you guys using rips?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. I modeled that myself." I even had one or two people who I've talked to in the industry say, "Oh, you guys are using rips, right?" I'm like, "No, no. We did this ourselves, like from the ground up. Every line of code, every piece of art, everything was from scratch." And yeah, like that's the kind of message that you want to send with a game like this. I think even like founders work too. It's like it's like someone went to the effort to actually like remake these models, and
I, I I started off remaking them, but now I'm actually using rips.
well, yeah, that's what I always thought, because like you'd be making them because rips weren't available. But like even so, like I think there's a little bit more clout when you make stuff yourself. People see that like, wow, that's really impressive, especially because you can beef up your portfolio too. I have an art station. Everything I do goes on my art station, because it's like, why wouldn't it? I do actually. I do intend to go into the industry one day, and all the stuff I do now is going to benefit me in the future.
Hmm.
Well, I look forward to seeing what you can do.
Dude, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Wave 3 is going to be super super cool. I can't say I can say almost nothing about Wave 3, but Wave 3 is going to be cool. I don't even know how to put into words like the shit we're going to try with Wave 3. Like, yeah, I'm anxious. I want to get the Wave 2 stuff done quick. I've just been having a bit of a motivation crisis where I'd get up in the morning, and I've been playing so many games. I've been playing Jedi Fallen Order. What a great game that is. And like I've barely even thought about like firing up Blender and doing a little bit of work. So I got to get my motivation stuff out of the way. But as soon as Wave 2 is finished and we polish it up, and um, we can hopefully sooner than later push a version out. I think the community kind of like, there's this expectation, and I feel kind of bad that we haven't communicated this. There's this expectation that we're probably going to launch around Christmas time, because that's historically when we do big stuff. But like I don't think we're going to hit Christmas this time. But sooner rather than later, when we launch Wave 2, I cannot wait to immediately get started on Wave 3 stuff, because there are some cool mechs on that list. There's a really crazy map we have in mind. Yeah,
All right, well,
it
we're
takes
looking forward to it.
There's
Yeah.
that. What I will say, a little teaser for everybody. The map that the one map we're working on with Wave 3 takes place far beyond the periphery, outside the periphery, like outside observable space. It's a completely original location.
Ooh.
Well, yes and no. I can't say much more than that, but it is a completely new location, and it's gonna be cool.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh, I look forward to it.
yes sir. It's gonna be dope.
All right. Well, we probably start to wrap things up a little bit. Founder, was there anything else you wanted to add about your particular projects, or any gripes you had about the franchise?
Not really. Not really. I'm still working.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All
I
right.
think I'm gonna go actually. I've got
Alrighty.
some stuff to do.
See
See
you
ya.
around. See you, Kegler. All right.
Hoping you can get that Hellbringer episode out soon, though.
Did you shut your face? There's no such thing about the Hellbringer. It doesn't exist. It's a myth.
Dude, I'm just waiting for hello, this is Ian, and welcome to the Mech Lab. We got the Hellbringer today, and then the video just ends. Like, when you even get like the little music in the intro, it's like, yeah, Steve didn't write the script.
Just ends.
Just ends. If Ian says Hellbringer, the video ends. That'll be. I'm looking forward to it. I'm super excited for that episode. I cannot wait.
All right, I'll force myself to work on the rigging tonight because that's the only thing I have to do.
Hurry up, bro.
Yeah,
Get
I'll
her
probably
done.
get the Shadow Cat done first because that's all rendered and written. I
Yeah,
just need to record it.
Done a Shadowcat episode yet? I thought you did because I saw the model like on display in the last episode that we recorded.
It was in the background, but I hadn't done one yet.
Put the cougar in the background of this one. Pose her up.
Maybe I should, though. You're not really going to see it because the scene I have is at nighttime.
Yeah, I know, but if you put the it's kind of appropriate if you put the cougar in this like as like the kind of like feature mech render for this like podcast because it just seems appropriate.
Oh. Oh yeah. I'll do it for that.
That's the one thing. That's the one thing about Mechassault is like the cougar was kind of this no-name mech before, and then Mechassault made everybody who played it and liked it love the cougar. All of a sudden, the cougar was an iconic mech when before it was like, I mean, it was like people liked it in MechWarrior 4 for sure, but like it wasn't like an amazing mech. It wasn't gonna. No one was gonna have a poster of the cougar before. Now, like the cougar, when you think cougar, it's like synonymous with Mechassault. It's like that is the poster boy of the game. That's crazy to think about how like games like this can elevate a previously kind of like unknown mech to iconic like Master Chief status. The cougar could have very well, had they continued Mechassault, been a mascot for the Xbox.
Oh, I don't doubt that. That's actually sounds appropriate for it.
Dude, the cougar, man, like there's so, and I feel really bad because I dominated the episode, and I'm sorry for that. But like,
No, it's appropriate. You're the Mechassault guy. Well, now we have two Mechassault guys, so I guess I can't say that anymore.
The cougar is just like so. It's such a cool mech game. Like it really captured my imagination as a kid because it's like they cut the front off a fighter jet and just put it on legs. It's basically kind of what it looks like. It's crazy. It's crazy that in the lore it's like a variation of the adder. But to me, like I look at it, I'm like that looks nothing like the adder at all. Like even the adder doesn't quite look like a jet fighter. It's got its own weirdness. The adder looks more like a dire wolf than anything else.
Yeah, they share legs, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's weird that like that's why like when you told me the philosophy behind your cougar model, I was like, well, I mean, you should probably just make it look more rounded because it's like it doesn't look like trying to make it look like the adder or look like it was like a modification of a different mech. Like it's just so weird. It has its own identity now. You know what I mean?
I figured I'd do something different, but yeah, the Mechassault version is definitely way more interesting.
I do like your model though. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's a nice model. I'm not like shit talking your model at all. And it was really cool. Really cool to voice act in that one animation.
Yeah, that was fun.
I hope I get to do that again one day. Maybe give the cougar more screen time. That'd be a great time.
Yeah, I just have to be less lazy about making animations. I'll have to find some time and energy, and maybe I'll make something within the next year.
doing the shit we do, it's it can be tough to be motivated, especially like when you're your own boss.
Yeah.
Like you have to really take your time and just like not stress yourself out with your own work. Just like if you don't want to work that day, just be like, okay, you know what? I'm just not going to work today. Like that's what I do. It's like if I don't want to work one day, I'll just be like, okay, you know what? We'll see you again tomorrow. I'll work again tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. And I just kind of take it day by day. That's all you really can do. You don't stress yourself out. You just take your time and like don't worry about it too much.
I love working
Community.
on this stuff. I just usually switch between projects. Like instead of like taking a break from working on everything, I'll go from working on a mech lab to working on an animation to writing a script and back and forth. And usually I'll get stuff done eventually. Just I have so many different things to do at the moment. It can take a while for that progress to go anywhere.
I'm doing the same thing too. Like I might have said like before the episodes started, sorry, that I'm doing some stuff with the Living Legends guys right now.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, that's been a nice ongoing distraction. Is like the Living Legends guys always have a little task for me to do, whether it's a texture or UV unwrapping. I never the only model I ever built completely from scratch for that game was the Anubis. I made the torso for the Anubis, which I might have talked about in the past. You can really see the Mechassault influence on it because I painted yellow and blue stripes and stuff on it, which is kind of unheard of for Living Legends. Like Living Legends
Oh,
usually all gray so that their skin system can work on it. But like if you look at the Anubis, you can see all the stripes and stuff I did. Um, yeah, the model was shit because at the time I didn't know what I was doing, and I've been begging Invictus to let me tackle it again, like just let me build it again from the ground up. I don't think he's gonna let me do it though, or if I
uh,
did do it, I don't think he would bother implementing it because it's like because his philosophy, and I don't necessarily disagree with this philosophy, is that like, hey, no one's complained about it yet. When someone complains about it, we could consider doing something, but like like if no one's complaining about it, then your time could be better spent on this other stuff. It's like, well, I can't really argue with that.
yeah, it sounds like a fairly healthy approach. So yeah, any final thoughts?
Founder, you got anything?
No, I'm still working on stuff.
Fair enough. Well, we'll have to see what you can come up with, and I appreciate that you guys were able to join me today and rant about Mechassault and everything else that we, just stumbled across through our conversations.
Yeah,
So
no, this was a good one. This was a
yeah,
really good one. Yeah, it
yeah.
was a lot of fun.
If you have any YouTube channels or pages you want to plug, feel free to do it now, and I'll put them in the description of the video.
https://wolvesgame.com. Download that shit today. It is available right now.
Ooh, yeah, you guys
Yes,
should do that.
as always. And yeah, like thanks to everyone for playing the game. Like I really appreciate. We have what, like 1,300 downloads right now, which isn't much, but like for an alpha, I'm really satisfied with the number, and I really appreciate the community coming out and playing the game.
Yeah,
So
it's a good, healthy start. You guys should go play it if you're listening, and next time we'll have a podcast. We can talk about the next phase of the game, hopefully, whenever that
oh yeah,
happens.
really looking forward to that. I'll keep you posted on that.
Alrighty, catch you guys later.
All right.